The diner had that sticky morning hum, the kind where silverware clinks too loud and the smell of burnt coffee clings to the air. Claire moved like usual, pouring decaf for table 3, wiping down a ketchup streak on the counter, letting the laughter behind her pass through like fog. The regulars didn't use her name. To them, she was just the scarred one, the quiet one, the one you barely notice until you're looking for something to sneer at. It wasn't new, not the whispers or the sideways glances. She kept her sleeves rolled low, her eyes lower, her voice set to neutral. The room buzzed with chatter. Forks scraped ceramic. Teenagers giggled too loudly over nothing. Then the man at booth 7 stood up. He wasn't young, but he was sharp. His spine straightened, and his hand came up slow and deliberate, fingers pressed to his temple. No one moved. Not Claire. Not the cook halfway through a rant about bacon orders. Not the boy at the corner booth lifting his phone for another secret photo. The salute held, crisp and military, like a blade slicing through fog. And for a long, strange second, no one understood what they were seeing. But they felt it. Every soul in the diner felt it. Something had shifted. Claire arrived before the sun did. Her boots hit the sidewalk at 5 each morning, rhythm steady, pace unbothered by rain or frost. She unlocked the back door of the diner without a sound, flicked on the lights one by one, watching the chrome surfaces go from shadow to silver under humming fluorescence. The place always smelled of yesterday's grease, and she never minded. Her name tag said Clare, but no one used it. Sarah, the other waitress, called her that one when she wanted the back booths cleared. Rick the cook just grunted at her like she was part of the ventilation. Even Dan, the manager, spoke to her like she was a fixture useful until she broke. She didn't argue. She didn't ask for shifts. She just showed up. The scar ran from under her left eye to the base of her jaw, a clean strike that healed ugly. No one knew the story. Most guessed wrong motorcycle wreck, bar brawl, maybe an angry ex. But Claire never corrected them. She just poured the coffee, bussed the plates, kept the jukebox set to something old and soft. She wore her uniform like armor, pressed shirt, rolled sleeves, hair pinned back like she meant business and nothing more. Sometimes a customer would say something, soft enough to be deniable. Scarface, Waffle House Rambo. Once, a father pointed her out to his son and muttered, "That's what happens when you throw your life away." Claire didn't blink. She never did. But later, she'd spent 10 full minutes in the bathroom, staring at her reflection like she was waiting for a different face to appear. No one noticed how precise she was, how she never dropped a tray, never forgot a refill, always anticipated the mess before it happened. She could tell who needed cream just by how they tapped the table. She memorized birthdays without being told. She vanished when she needed to, reappeared when things got hectic. It wasn't training. It was survival. And still, they didn't see her. Not really. The diner looked ordinary from the outside. Faded awning, one neon sign half lit, and a parking lot with more potholes than cars. But inside, it was a theater of quiet judgment, the kind that didn't shout or throw fists. It rolled its eyes. It scoffed into coffee cups. It whispered when someone turned away. Claire got the worst tables, the ones by the kitchen door or near the drafty window. Sarah, all glitter nails and fake lashes, made sure of that. She'd lean on the counter, gum snapping, eyes scanning for tips. When customers walked in, Sarah smiled first. Claire just got the leftovers, the grumpy trucker, the couple who argued over who ordered what, the man who paid in coins and left napkins scribbled with advice like smile more or maybe try makeup. Rick the cook never said good morning. He didn't need to. His language was slamming pans and yelling about ticket times. Dan, the manager, came in twice a week, just long enough to scowl at payroll and pretend the health inspector wasn't due. Claire didn't mind. Or maybe she just got good at pretending. The regulars didn't look at her face. Their eyes flicked past it like skipping a cracked mirror. The new ones sometimes stared, but not for long. The scar made them uncomfortable. They'd ask for ketchup, never say thank you. Some took pictures when they thought she wasn't looking. Claire noticed. She always noticed. Teenagers were the worst. They'd sit in the corner booth, loud and messy, daring each other to make comments. One called her Scarface, loud enough for a table to chuckle. She kept walking. Not a flinch. Just picked up the plate. Wiped down the vinyl. Reset the fork. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was defense. A wall built brick by indifferent brick. This was the diner. Not just a workplace, but a place where people felt free to judge without consequence. Claire existed there like wallpaper seen, used, ignored. Until someone finally looked closer. It was raining the morning he walked in. Not hard. Just that slow, steady kind that smeared the windows and made the floor tiles squeak. Claire was already on her third pot of coffee. Apron, damp, from a syrup spill. The usual crowd trickled in. Truckers, early shift workers, 2 teenagers in hoodies who hadn't ordered but were hogging the corner booth. She didn't look up when the bell above the door rang. Didn't need to. She could tell from the boots alone, heavy, deliberate, the kind that had seen miles. He walked in like someone used to waiting for bad news. Quiet, but solid. Gray beard, weathered cap in hand, jacket with old patches, faded into the fabric. He didn't ask for a booth. Just sat at number 7. The one no one liked because the blinds were busted and the heat never reached it. Claire approached with her pad, pen ready. He looked up, and for the first time in what felt like years, she hesitated. His eyes didn't flinch. They didn't scan her cheek or linger on her hands. They stayed on her face like he was trying to place a photograph from long ago. Claire blinked once. It was barely a flicker, but it betrayed something. He gave a slight nod, not a smile, not a greeting, just a silent acknowledgement, like 2 ghosts meeting in daylight. He didn't speak right away, just watched her move behind the counter, fingers steady, eyes scanning orders. She avoided his table for a few minutes, but her path eventually curved back toward him. When she reached to refill his cup, his voice came quiet, almost like an afterthought. Fallujah. Just that one word. Not a question. Not loud. Claire froze, the carafe in her hand catching a slight tremble. She didn't respond, just focused on the dark coffee swirling into the mug. Raven Squadron. He said it like a memory, not a line. 3rd Recon. Ghostbird. She looked up now, slowly. Her face stayed still, but her breath changed. He saw it. No idea what you're talking about, she said finally, not even trying to sound convincing. He nodded once, like that was expected. His eyes dropped to her wrist. The tattoo wasn't fully visible, but the curve of the bird's wing peeked out beneath her cuff. He didn't reach, didn't press. Just sipped his coffee like this was any Monday morning and not the first time anyone had spoken that name aloud in over a decade. Claire walked away without another word, but her chest was tight. Her cover hadn't been blown. Not officially, but someone had finally looked and recognized what they saw. Claire stepped outside during her break. The rain had eased, leaving behind a heavy stillness. She lit a cigarette, hands barely shaking now. The sky was a flat sheet of gray, the street empty. She didn't turn when the bell above the door jingled. She already knew it was him. "Didn't mean to spook you," he said, voice calm, low. She didn't answer, just flicked ash onto the wet sidewalk. He stepped beside her. not too close. Lit his own cigarette like it was a ceremony. For a while, they smoked in silence. They said Raven Squadron didn't make it out. He said eventually. Last word we got. Whole unit lost. Claire exhaled slowly. That's the idea, she murmured. He looked at her now, carefully. You were the CIR instructor, right, Ghostbird? She didn't flinch, but the name landed hard. No one had used it in over 10 years. She gave him a sharp look. They said you escaped captivity. 60 clicks. Mountains. No gear. Just a flare and a busted radio. I don't talk about that, Claire said flatly. He didn't push, just nodded. She pulled up her sleeve, barely enough to reveal the dagger wrapped in wings. He stared. Not at her. At the mark. How many, he asked, almost like he didn't want to know. 11, she whispered. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. The silence between them carried all the weight. She thought that would be the end of it. Just two veterans sharing smoke and silence. But as she flicked the cigarette away, he spoke again. You know they're coming today. Right. Claire didn't respond. Her eyes followed a car crawling through the intersection. He kept going. Brass. Press. Ceremony. At the base. Full honor. Flyover. Cameras. Big deal. She turned to face him now. That has nothing to do with me. He didn't argue. Just gave her that same quiet look. They're talking about heroism. Sacrifice. History. But they don't have the full story. I do. She shook her head. No one wants classified messes and ghosts who weren't supposed to survive. He stepped a bit closer. Voice softer. Maybe they don't want the whole truth. But they need a face that reminds them what it cost. She didn't answer right away. Her hand curled at her side, fingers grazing the fabric just above the hidden tattoo. It wasn't fear she felt. It was something older, something that used to matter before the world moved on. What if I'm not that face anymore? He didn't smile, didn't reassure her, just said what she already knew. You never stopped being her. You just stopped letting anyone see it. The diner buzzed again by mid-morning. Kids talked too loud. The grill sizzled with cheap sausage. Claire wiped counters that didn't need wiping, pretended not to feel the eyes still following her. Booth 7 hadn't emptied. The man sat there, still, coffee cooling in front of him. She passed by his table again, tray balanced, ready to ask if he needed anything else. He didn't wait. His voice cut low and steady. Where'd you get that? Claire didn't pretend not to understand. Her hand instinctively moved over her left wrist, hiding what had already been seen. Too late? He wasn't asking out of curiosity. His jaw was set. His eyes held that look soldiers get when they've seen too much and remember all of it. He spoke again, softer now. You don't get that kind of mark at a parlor. I knew one woman who wore it. She was supposed to be gone. Claire stood still. Her breath caught. She didn't nod. Didn't deny it. Then the man rose, not slow, not aged. He moved like someone trained to move only with purpose. And right there, before teenagers with phones and the man flipping pancakes behind the counter, he lifted his hand in full salute. Sharp, exact, military. The diner fell silent. No orders shouted, no questions asked, just silence as clean as snow. And Claire's eyes locked on his. She didn't return the salute. She didn't need to. Her face said everything. Her body stood straighter. And in that moment, the woman they all mocked had vanished. What stood there now was a ghost made visible. It started with the creak of the door. A man walked in wearing a long coat, posture straight despite his years. He carried no umbrella, no hesitation, just a leather folder, thick and worn, tucked beneath one arm. He scanned the room once, spotted Clare, and walked toward her like he had known where she'd be all along. She didn't speak, didn't move. He stopped at the counter, unlatched the folder, and laid it flat in front of her. Inside were papers with redacted lines, aerial maps, and one faded page stamped with a Department of Defense seal. Ghostbird, Raven Squadron, rescue attempts, after-action reports stripped of detail but not weight. The diner held its breath. A few people had stood up without realizing it. Someone dropped a fork, and no one picked it up. Claire stared at the documents. They looked like ghosts on paper. Her name never mentioned, but the timeline fit. The coordinates matched. The colonel said nothing at first. Then he spoke with a voice roughened by sand and time. You saved more than they ever knew. There were pilots who made it out because of you. Units that lived because you delayed enemy fire for 30 seconds longer than any sane person would have. Claire didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just took off her apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. She picked up the folder, not for pride, for proof. Then she walked past everyone. No explanation. No goodbye. Just the quiet steps of someone who had finished hiding. The sun hadn't fully risen when she stepped onto the airfield. Cold wind cut through her borrowed jacket. Her hands, bare and sure, gripped the folder like it might vanish if she loosened her fingers. Planes lined the runway, their silhouettes sharp against the violet morning sky. She hadn't walked this tarmac in years, but her boots fell into the old rhythm without thought. A young lieutenant greeted her with a nod, his gaze flicking to her wrist, then away. No one asked questions. The folder carried all the answers. Inside the hangar, a small group of officers stood waiting. No cameras, no podiums, just maps, charts, and quiet tension. They made room as she approached. She laid the documents on the table, tapped 2 coordinates, and began to speak. Her voice didn't shake. She told them how signals were intercepted, how paths were forged through mountains without satellite cover, how flare patterns meant different things at night when batteries failed. They listened, not out of courtesy, out of necessity. Later, someone asked her to ride co-pilot, not to fly, but to observe. The seat was familiar. The noise of the rotor filled her bones like a second heartbeat. As the bird lifted, she looked down at the base shrinking below. The diner, the names, the years, all still part of her, but not defining her anymore. She wasn't disappearing this time. When they landed, she didn't need applause or speeches. The wind tugged at her hair. Her scar caught the sun just right. And, for the first time in years, she didn't try to hide it. She stood near the crew, younger soldiers who hadn't fought her war but would fight their own. One of them asked her something simple. What's it like? Surviving Clare looked out at the hangars, the stretch of sky, the hum of engines. It's not about surviving, she said. It's about carrying what others can't, and making sure it doesn't get forgotten.